Okay, let's get started. The problem. Okay, again, you can read this for yourself. I'm going to give you a minute to look at this. This will depend on what your source is, where you get your information from. But suffice to say that handling paper is very expensive. My comment when I look at this is the average misfiled document costs $120 in employee time. If people can't find some corporate information or corporate knowledge, they may have to recreate it again. If they have to recreate it, I submit to you that the recreated document is not going to be as high quality as the original. I took these photographs. These photographs are an actual warehouse. A warehouse in Leominster, Massachusetts, and this is this lady here in the white dress with the peach-colored top. She is she's in her 60s, I'm sure, and she's actually up on ladders trying to pull down these boxes from these shelving units and these lateral files. And as I was standing there talking to her, I'm thinking, you know, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. So anyway, this is mental health records, similar to medical files, only there's clinician notes that are in here as well. It's highly sensitive with personally identifiable information. So you wouldn't want this information to fall in the wrong hands. The situation was there's 6,000 boxes in this old red brick mill building, and they're losing their lease. So having said that, they were faced with moving all of this information to yet a different building. So I entered the picture and I said, well, wait a minute, why don't we scan all this stuff, shred the paper, don't move the paper or move far less of it, and rely on the digital information. So these are real. Now, if you look at these pictures here, they're fairly organized. So this was upstairs in the building. This is downstairs in the building and outside in a metal container. Now, this is not good, folks, because paper is an organic material, and all you have to do is add a little bit of moisture, and paper starts to decompose or rot, if you will. So you're going to see this out in the industry, and that's why I put this out here. Companies are traditionally pack rats. They like to keep the paper. The real challenge is they're keeping things they don't even need to anymore because they're past retention schedule, but that's a conversation for a different point in time. But I just wanted you to see real world pictures of potentially what can happen. Okay, so enough said about the problem. I think you get the point. Let's talk about the solution. Well, before we even get started, I want to tell you that many of you folks are probably selling, I'm going to use the word docublob so I don't insult anybody, but you know, the Sentry files, the Documentums, the, you know, yada yada, all the different software packages that are out there. The challenge is that dealers will sign up with some of these software manufacturers, and then they'll pull their sales staff out of the field, which obviously is a bad idea. And then they'll send them off, fly them away to school, and they'll come back and they're DocuBlob experts. The challenge is they don't understand the business requirements that goes through an accounts payable process, or the business requirements for a human resource onboarding process. Well, if they don't understand those, they can have the best software in the world, but they don't understand the fit. So my comment to you is, it would be wise to get them a little bit of training to teach them, I would call it business acumen, before you expect them to go out and sell these software applications. Well, having said that, once they start selling these software applications, many times the prospects are going to say, well, what about the 50 box or 500 boxes that I have in the back room here? How am I going to get all that stuff in paper into the software that I just purchased? And enter you with the opportunity to scan for them. So all the benefits of electronic filing require scanning first. So all of the higher levels of security, all the incredible efficiencies and time savings and cost savings, all of the workflow that can be accomplished through these electronic systems, all of that requires electronic files, not paper files. So I'm telling you again, I feel you're in a good time to be in this business. Now, if the Supreme Court of the United States scans, and they do, then all of what you're about to offer your customer is legally acceptable in a court of law. It's considered, quote, best evidence. So now I'm not a lawyer, but I've done business with lawyers over the years. And I know that to be the case. So when customers look at you and they say, well, I'm not so sure I can get rid of these paper files, you can't argue with them because they're still the customer. However, having said that, if you really look into it, you'll find out most of this stuff can be scanned. President Obama set aside $19.2 billion for what's called electronic health records. Well, we don't represent EHR, but what we do represent is called EMR, electronic medical records. Well, electronic medical records are the old legacy files that the doctor had been filling out on paper, servicing the account for so many years. There's 20, 30 years of paper information based on this one particular patient. So we can go ahead and offer to scan all that backlog of paper files, make it electronic, and then they can import it into their EHR system, and it makes the record far more complete. So suffice to say that a doctor's office, if they have their legacy files scanned and they satisfy what's called meaningful use, which is a legal term, they can have up to $45,000 underwritten by the federal government through Medicare and Medicaid. So folks, wouldn't it be nice to sell a service that can actually be underwritten by somebody else? Okay, what drives the need? In other words, people are generally lazy. I'm sorry to say that, but people are generally lazy. They don't like to change anything. So, they sit in the same pew at church. They park in the same parking space at the office. They do things very, very rote. When you walk in and you say, hey, I'll get rid of all your paper files and we'll scan it, some people are going to look at you like you're crazy. Well, how you come against that is you say, well, let's talk. Are there any compliance or mandates that are wrapped around your specific business that compel you to get rid of these paper files? And the answer is yes. There's many federal and state mandates that are out there. They're always industry specific, so it's different regulations, different mandates for a doctor's office as it would be for a manufacturing company. Massachusetts has a 93H law which protects PII, personally identifiable information. And what PII means is, well, it's obvious, the credit card information. It could be bank account information. It could be insurance information. It could be your name and address simply. It could be a social security number. It could be your blood type. It could be many different things. But having said that, for example, if one of your customers calls you now and orders a new toner cartridge, if they pay for it with a credit card and give you those numbers over the phone and your secretary writes them down and then fills the order, you are legally responsible to do your, quote, due diligence to protect that information that was written on that little notepad. So that's important. And things that are written on paper and then laid on someone's desk and then that person goes to lunch, that's not protecting it, okay? That's called white-collar crime. That's not good. I would rather that they put them into electronic systems, which have a log in and automatic log out. They go to lunch, you train them to log out, but if they don't, the system will time out, and then people walking by can't see that information. Next one down is HIPAA. Everybody's heard about that. Let me just tell you that's not only medical, that has to do with banking as well. I was teaching HSBC Bank up in Buffalo, and they said they had just come back from HIPAA training. Federal government has Electronic Freedom of Information Act, Gramm-Leach-Bliley for the financial industry. There's e-discovery requests. There's a lot of these things that compel people to move away from paper and towards electronic. Okay, a small company by the name of Ernst & Young, which does an awful lot of research, produced a profitability bulletin, and they say by implementing ECM as electronic content management, that's having all of your information scanned and digital, a customer can double or triple their processing capacity. Well, that means they can send out more invoices at the end of the month, free up staff time. Everybody's trying to do more with less. Respond immediately to inquiries. That's called better customer service. Reduce document storage space. Folks, document storage space is expensive. Class A office space is very expensive. And to have, 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 square feet of file cabinets in your office space, just do the math. That costs money every year. Safeguard documents through audit trails. You're never going to know, and this, I'm going to leave the names out, but there was a gas light company that we dealt with down in Georgia, and somebody came in and stole 2 boxes of highly confidential, what they call service cards. The problem was, out of the millions of customers they have, they don't know which ones were taken, and they're not going to know until there's an accident, and that's bad. So electronically, number one, even if somebody came in and took something, they never take the originals. All they do is take a copy of it. Point number two, your information is always in multiple points of presence, which means it's physically located. The electronic files are physically located in multiple locations. So that protects it. And then getting back to the audit trails, you would always know who came in, what logon, what passcode, what IP address, what files did they touch with full path and file name, what they did with it. I mean, it's a long conversation, but I can tell you later that electronically, it's far more secure than in paper. Okay, again, you can read what AIIM says, a little bit of research. My comment to you at this point is what's called corporate knowledge. When a company pays money to do research and find information or produce documentation, they really don't want to lose that. It's very expensive to lose it. Okay, so what's the process to do this to begin with? Well, it's similar to being an office equipment dealer, for example, but then again, it's unique because let's start with a statement of work. A statement of work for scanning paper files is drastically different than installing a local area network. It's unique. And what we do with our students is we give them examples of what that SOW looks like. A service level agreement is the same thing. For example, what if you pick up the files, bring them back to your location, and the customer says, well, I need, invoice 123. You have to find it. You've got to have an SLA that states how much time do you have in order to find it and how often can they request this information. Again, let me share something with you right now. There's nothing I can teach you or we can teach you that you can't learn on your own. The challenge is, how long do you want to invest in that? Okay, I have 30 years experience. Excuse me, we have been running a scanning bureau since 1996. We've taken all of that information and compiled it and compressed it, and we can teach it to you in as little as 3 or 4 days. You can take that information and it will help you not fall into the same pitfalls as what we did over the years. So it is school of hard knocks, but that I find is the best education. All right, so there's acceptance criteria. How do you know when the scanning job is actually done? There's change order procedures. What if they say, well, you were scanning at 200 dots per inch. Now we want you to scan at 300 dots per inch and grayscale because we're going to do OCR. And if you don't realize what I just said, that's fine, but it is tantamount to a change that the customer said in midstream, mid-project. And if that's true, you have to teach them what a change order procedure is so that you can have it in writing. Written indexing agreement. You and your client have to both agree when you scan this information and you index it or you add relevant information to these images. What is this relevant information? And it has to be in writing. So again, you've got to have some legal documentation before you even start scanning. Now the next one is pick up the documents. I'm a big advocate of picking them up and bringing them back to your location rather than scanning on site. You can scan on site, but it's double the cost. The next step is document preparation, pulling staples and paper clips, inserting barcode record separator pages, and QA that, and then you're going to scan everything. I'm a big believer in production scanners, not MFPs or copy machines. They can be used for smaller volumes, but not for high volumes. Then you're going to index the information. You're going to archive it. It has to live somewhere. You're going to turn the paper files back to them, or you might shred it for them. Then they're going to import all this electronic information, or you may host it for them. You might put it in your cloud-based document management system where you can just charge them on a monthly basis.